Some people live in the light, while others shape it from the darkness. For 3 years, Naomi Rivers had been the invisible architect of greatness, crafting words that moved thousands while remaining unknown to the very man who spoke them. Rain tapped against the window of her small apartment as Naomi stared at the glowing screen before her. Outside, the city of Seattle hummed with evening traffic, but inside, there was only silence and the soft clicking of keys. She pushed a strand of dark hair behind her ear and reread the email that had arrived an hour ago. Urgent keynote speech for Technology Summit. Deadline, 36 hours. Oars began to move, almost without conscious thought. Words flowed like water, finding its path, shaping themselves into something powerful, something that would make audiences lean forward in their seats. This was her gift, her curse, her secret life. Naomi was a ghostwriter, but not just any ghostwriter. She was the voice behind Julian Westfield, the youngest CEO to ever lead Horizon Technologies, a man Forbes called the orator of the digital age. Every speech that made him famous, every phrase that went viral, every word that inspired innovation in boardrooms across the world, they all came from her small apartment, her tired eyes, her restless mind. She had never met him. Not really. Their communication happened through encrypted channels, managed by agencies and assistants. She received briefs about company direction, technical details, audience profiles. She sent back completed speeches. Money appeared in her account. The cycle repeated. But somewhere along the way, something strange had happened. Through hundreds of emails, through the careful notes Julian's team sent about his preferences and concerns, through the voice recordings of his speaking style that she studied obsessively, Naomi had begun to know him. Really know him. She understood when he was nervous by the terse nature of the briefs. She could sense his excitement when new projects launched by the energy in the background information. She knew his values, his fears, his dreams better than she knew her own, and foolishly, impossibly. She had fallen in love with the man she had helped create. "You're being ridiculous," she told herself, reaching for her third cup of coffee. "You're in love with words on a screen, not a real person." But her heart didn't listen to logic. 7 hours later, the speech was finished. A masterpiece that wove together quantum computing breakthroughs with human hope. Technical precision with emotional resonance. Julian would deliver it in 5 days to 3,000 people. He would receive a standing ovation, and she would watch from her couch alone, proud and heartbroken all at once. She hit send and stretched her aching shoulders. The clock read 2 in the morning. Her phone buzzed. Ben, her oldest friend, checking in as he always did when he knew she was working late. "Another night saving the tech world?" His message read something like that. She typed back, "You know you're worth more than being invisible, right?" Naomi smiled sadly at the screen. Ben was one of the few people who knew the truth about her work, though even he didn't understand the full depth of her connection to Julian Westfield. She was about to put the phone down when a new email arrived. Not from the usual automated system, but from an actual person. Patricia Huang, Director of Human Resources at Horizon Technologies. Naomi's heart began to race as she read. The email was formal, professional, and completely unexpected. Horizon Technologies wanted to bring her in-house. They wanted her on staff, working directly from their headquarters. The salary was impressive, more than double what she currently made. But there was a condition that made her blood run cold: complete confidentiality. She could never reveal her authorship of the speeches. There would be legal consequences, serious ones, if she ever disclosed the truth. And the position required her to work on-site, 5 days a week, in the same building where Julian Westfield worked. Naomi read the email 3 times, her mind spinning. This meant she would see him, meet him, work near him. The man whose thoughts she had translated into words for 3 years, the man who she knew intimately without him knowing she existed at all. It was dangerous. It was complicated. It was everything she should say no to. Her fingers hovered over the keyboard for a long moment. Outside, the rain had stopped. Dawn was beginning to paint the sky in shades of pink and gold. She typed 2 words: "I accept." 4 weeks later, Naomi stood outside the Horizon Technologies Tower, a gleaming structure of glass and steel that seemed to touch the clouds. Her reflection stared back at her from the polished doors. A woman in a simple navy dress, her dark hair pulled into a professional bun, brown eyes wide with nerves and anticipation.
What?
"You can do this," she whispered. "He doesn't know you. You're just another employee." The lobby was breathtaking, all soaring ceilings and natural light. A friendly receptionist directed her to the 14th floor where the communications department was located. Naomi stepped into the elevator, pressed the button, and tried to calm her racing heart. The elevator stopped on the 10th floor, the doors opened, and Julian Westfield walked in. Time seemed to slow. Naomi felt the air leave her lungs in a rush. She had seen countless photos, watched dozens of videos, but nothing could have prepared her for the reality of his presence. He was taller than she expected, maybe 6 feet, with dark blonde hair that looked deliberately casual and eyes that were in striking shade of blue-gray. He wore a charcoal suit that fit him perfectly, and there was an energy about him, a focused intensity that made the elevator feel suddenly smaller. For a moment, their eyes met. Naomi felt electricity run down her spine. His gaze was direct, curious, with a warmth that the photographs never captured. "Good morning," he said, and his voice sent a shiver through her. It was the voice she had heard in recordings, yes, but richer, somehow more real, filled with textures that technology couldn't capture. "Good morning," Naomi managed. Cursing the slight tremor in her response, Julian pressed the button for the 20th floor. The executive level then turned back to her with a slight smile. "First day. How did he know?" "Yes," she said. "Is it that obvious?" "You have that look," he said, and there was kindness in his expression. Excited and terrified in equal measure. "I remember the feeling." Naomi couldn't help but smile. "That's exactly it." "What department?" "Communications. 14th floor." Something shifted in his expression. Interest, maybe. Recognition. "You must be the new writer Patricia mentioned." "Naomi, right?" Hearing her name from his lips felt surreal. "That's right. I've heard impressive things about your work." Julian studied her with an intensity that made Naomi want to look away and hold his gaze forever all at once. "I'm looking forward to seeing what you can do. If you only knew," she thought. The elevator chimed. 14th floor. Naomi stepped toward the opening doors, but Julian spoke again, stopping her. "Welcome to Horizon," he said. "Something tells me you're going to do extraordinary things here." She turned back to look at him. Those blue-gray eyes held hers for a heartbeat longer than necessary. "Hey," Naomi said softly, and stepped out of the elevator. As the doors closed, she caught one last glimpse of his face, that slight smile still playing at his lips. Naomi walked down the corridor on legs that felt unsteady, her heart pounding a rhythm that felt like both warning and promise. This was going to be so much harder than she had imagined. The communications department was a bright, open space filled with creative energy and the constant hum of deadlines. Patricia Huang greeted Naomi with a firm handshake and a smile that didn't quite reach her eyes. "Let me be direct," Patricia said, once they were alone in her office. "Your official title is Senior Communications Writer. Your actual job is to continue doing what you've been doing for 3 years. Writing Julian's speeches." Naomi nodded slowly. "I understand. Do you?" Patricia leaned forward, her expression hardening. "Because I need to be absolutely clear about something. Julian can never know. He believes the speeches come from an external consulting team. He takes enormous pride in his public speaking, in his ability to connect with audiences. If he discovered that one person, especially someone on staff, has been behind every word, it would devastate him." The words stung more than Naomi expected. "I signed the confidentiality agreement."
Good.
"Because the legal consequences would be severe, but more importantly, you would destroy something in him. That confidence, that sense of accomplishment. It's fragile, even if it doesn't look that way from the outside." Naomi thought about the nervous energy she had sensed in late-night emails. The way Julian's team would send worried notes before big presentations. She had always imagined him as invincible, but Patricia's words suggested something different. "I would never hurt him," Naomi said quietly. and meant it more deeply than Patricia could understand. Over the following weeks, Naomi settled into a strange double life. Officially, she worked on various company communications, newsletters, press releases, internal memos. But her real work happened in the quiet hours, crafting speeches that Julian would deliver with passion and confidence, never knowing they came from the woman who sat 3 floors below him and constantly, unavoidably, she saw him. Julian had a habit of wandering the building, dropping in on different departments, talking to employees at all levels. It was one of the things that made him beloved as a leader, this accessibility, this genuine interest in the people who worked for him, which meant he often appeared in the communications department. "Naomi," he said one afternoon, materializing beside her desk with 2 cups of coffee, "I noticed you drink it black. Am I remembering correctly?" She looked up, startled. He had noticed how she took her coffee? "Yes, thank you." He sat on the edge of her desk, casual and comfortable, and Naomi's heart began its now familiar racing. "I read the employee newsletter you wrote last week. The piece about innovation coming from unexpected places. It resonated with me." "Glad," she said, trying to keep her voice steady. There was a line in it. Julian's eyes grew distant, thoughtful. "You wrote that sometimes the most important voices are the ones we don't hear. The people working behind the scenes, who make magic possible, but never take credit for it." Naomi felt her chest tighten. She had written that thinking of herself, a moment of vulnerability she had allowed into her work. "Do you really believe that?" Julian asked, those blue-gray eyes finding hers again. "Yes," Naomi said softly. "I think the world overlooks a lot of people who deserve to be seen." Something passed between them in that moment, a connection that felt almost tangible. Julian smiled, and there was a warmth in it that made Naomi's breath catch. "I think you're right," he said. "And I think you're one of those people who deserves to be seen." He left shortly after, but Naomi sat frozen at her desk, his words echoing in her mind. She felt the weight of the lie she was living more heavily than ever. The weeks turned into months. The connection between them deepened in small moments. A shared smile in the hallway, Julian seeking her opinion on company messaging, conversations in the break room that lasted longer than they should, where they discovered shared loves of old bookstores and late-night jazz music and rainy Sunday mornings. Ben noticed the change in her during their weekly coffee meet. "You're falling harder," he observed, stirring his latte. "I know," Naomi admitted miserably. "And it's so much worse now that he's real. Now that I can see he's even better than I imagined. You have to tell him I can't. The legal agreement." "Patricia's warnings? It would ruin everything," or Ben said gently. "It would set you both free." But Naomi couldn't imagine a scenario where Julian, learning the truth, didn't end in disaster. Then came the evening that changed everything. Naomi was working late, alone in the communications department, finishing a draft of Julian's keynote for the upcoming Global Leadership Summit. It was her most important assignment yet, a speech that would be broadcast to business leaders worldwide. She was so absorbed in the work that she didn't hear the footsteps behind her. "Still here?" Naomi jumped, spinning in her chair. Julian stood there, loosened tie, suit jacket draped over his arm, looking tired but somehow more human than she had ever seen him. "I could ask you the same thing," she said, quickly minimizing the document on her screen. "It's almost 9. "Big presentation coming up," Julian said, moving closer. "I always get restless before major speeches. Can't sleep, can't settle." Naomi knew this. She knew it from 3 years of working with him, from the patterns she had learned. "Nerves?" She asked carefully, something like that. He pulled up a chair, sitting beside her. They were close now, closer than they had ever been. Naomi could smell his cologne, something clean and understated. "Can I tell you something?" "Of course. Sometimes I feel like a fraud." The confession came out quiet, vulnerable. "Everyone thinks I'm this great speaker, this visionary communicator. But the truth is, I'm terrified every single time. What if I forget what to say? What if the words don't come? What if everyone realizes I'm not as good as they think I am?" Naomi's heart ached. She wanted to tell him that his fear was unfounded, that he was brilliant, The words always came because she made sure they did. But she couldn't. The fact that you feel that way, she said instead, means you care. It means you want to do well, to honor the people listening to you. That's not being a fraud. That's being human. Julian looked at her, really looked at her, and Naomi felt something shift in the air between them. How do you always know the right thing to say? He asked softly. Because I know you, she thought. Because I've been inside your mind for 3 years, shaping your thoughts into words, learning every nuance of how you think and feel. Lucky guess, she whispered. Julian reached out. And for one heart-stopping moment, Naomi thought he was going to touch her face. But his phone buzzed, breaking the spell. He glanced at it and sighed. I should go, he said, standing. But Naomi, thank you for listening, for understanding. After he left, Naomi sat in the empty office, her hands trembling. She pulled up the speech she had been working on, the words she had written for him to say at the Global Summit. And for the first time in 3 years, she wondered if she could keep living this lie. The night before the Global Leadership Summit, Naomi couldn't sleep. She lay in her apartment, staring at the ceiling, thinking about the speech she had written. It was perhaps her best work. 15 minutes of words that she hoped would inspire, challenge, and move people across the world. Julian would deliver it tomorrow. He would be brilliant. And he would never know that the person who made it possible was falling apart with the weight of the secret. Her phone buzzed at 2 a.m. An email from Patricia. Urgent situation. Come to the office now. Naomi's stomach dropped. She dressed quickly and caught a cab to Horizon Technologies. The building was eerily quiet at this hour, most windows dark except for the 20th floor where light blazed. Patricia met her at the elevator, her face tense. We have a problem. Julian is having a complete crisis about tomorrow's speech. He's been up there for hours, saying something feels wrong, that the words don't feel authentic. He's threatening to write something new himself, which would be a disaster. We need you to talk to him, me. Naomi's voice came out strangled. Why me? Because he trusts you. I've seen how he is around you. He'll listen to you. Before Naomi could protest, Patricia was pushing her toward the elevator. Go. Convince him the speech is fine. Do whatever you have to do. The executive floor was silent except for the sound of Naomi's footsteps on polished marble. She found Julian in his corner office, standing at the floor-to-ceiling windows, looking out at the sleeping city. The speech was pulled up on his computer screen, covered in red marks and edits. Julian. He turned and she saw something in his face that broke her heart. Vulnerability. Fear. Exhaustion. Naomi. What are you doing here? Patricia called me. She said you were struggling with the speech. Julian laughed bitterly. Struggling. That's diplomatic. The truth is, I've been reading these words for hours, and they feel hollow. Perfect, beautiful, exactly what everyone wants to hear, but hollow. Naomi moved closer, her heart pounding. What do you mean? I've been thinking about something you said weeks ago. About the voices we don't hear, the people behind the scenes. And I started wondering who wrote this speech. Really wrote it? Because it sounds like me, but better than me. It sounds like someone who understands me better than I understand myself. The moment hung between them. Fragile and dangerous. Julian, Naomi said carefully, tell me the truth. He turned to face her fully. Please, I need to know. Have you been writing my speeches? The question hung in the air. Naomi felt the world narrow to just the two of them. This moment, this choice. She could lie. She could protect herself. Protect him from the truth. Maintain the comfortable fiction they had all agreed to, or she could be brave. Yes, she whispered. For 3 years, every speech, every word, it's been me. The silence that followed felt infinite. Julian stared at her, emotions flickering across his face too quickly to read. Shock, confusion, something that might have been anger. And then, unexpectedly, understanding. 3 years, he said slowly. The tech conference in Miami, the investor presentation that saved the company, the speech that went viral about ethical innovation. All of them. And the emails, the consultations, the back and forth about tone and messaging, that was me too. Through the agency system, you never knew you were talking to just one person. Julian walked to his desk, gripped the edge of it, his knuckles white. Naomi prepared herself for anger, for accusations of deception. She deserved them. But when he looked at her again, his eyes were glistening. Do you know what I thought when we met in that elevator? I thought there's something familiar about her, something I recognize but can't place. His voice was rough with emotion. It was you. I was recognizing you. The voice I've been working with, learning from, trusting for 3 years. I just didn't know it. Julian, I'm sorry. I wanted to tell you so many times, but the legal agreements Patricia said it would hurt you to know, hurt me. He moved toward her. Naomi, these speeches, they haven't been me performing someone else's words. They've been us. A collaboration. You took what I felt and couldn't express and turned it into something beautiful. You made me better. How could that hurt? Tears were streaming down Naomi's face now. But everyone thinks it's all you. The genius orator, the visionary communicator, 'cause I am those things when I work with you. Julian reached out, gently wiping a tear from her cheek with his thumb. Don't you see? You don't write speeches for me. You write with me? You take what's in my heart and give it a voice. That's what I've always wanted to do, Naomi said. From the very beginning, even before I knew you as anything more than a client, I wanted to help you shine. I wanted people to hear what I heard in you. The compassion, the vision, the hope for what technology could do for humanity. And somewhere along the way, Julian said softly, his hands still touching her face, you fell in love with me. It wasn't a question. Naomi nodded, unable to speak. That's good, Julian whispered, 'cause I've been falling in love with you since the moment you stepped into that elevator. I just didn't understand why it felt like coming home until now. I was falling in love with someone I already knew. Someone who had been beside me, invisible but essential. For 3 years. I kissed her then, gentle and sure. And Naomi felt something inside her finally settle into place. This was what it felt like to be seen. Really seen, and loved anyway. Not despite her secret, but because of the years of care and craft that secret represented. When they pulled apart, Julian smiled. So about this speech, Naomi laughed through her tears. You're giving the speech? We're giving the speech, he corrected. And I want to start it with the truth, that behind every leader is a team of people who deserve recognition. That my success has never been mine alone. And that the words I speak tomorrow were written by someone brilliant, dedicated, and generous enough to let me shine while staying in the shadows. Until now, Patricia will kill us both, and we'll face her together. Julian pulled Naomi close. No more shadows. No more secrets. Just us, working together, acknowledged and real. The next day, Julian stood before 3,000 people and millions watching online. He began his speech with words Naomi hadn't written, words that came straight from his heart. Before I begin, I need to acknowledge someone. For 3 years, I've been privileged to work with an extraordinary writer, someone who understood my vision and helped me articulate it in ways I never could alone. Today, I want you all to meet her. He extended his hand toward the wings of the stage. Naomi, heart racing, walked out to join him. The applause was thunderous. Later, after the speech was over and had been declared a triumph, after the legal meetings with Patricia, who was surprisingly understanding, after the media coverage that praised Horizon Technologies for its transparency and collaboration, Naomi and Julian sat in his office watching the sunset paint the city gold. Are you angry at me? Julian asked. For revealing everything without asking you first? Naomi thought about it. 3 years of hiding, of being invisible, of loving from the shadows, and now stepping into the light, terrifying and exhilarating all at once. No, she said finally. I think I was waiting for someone to see me. I just didn't know it until you did. I see you, Julian said, taking her hand. And what I see is extraordinary. They sat together as the sun sank below the horizon. 2 people who had found each other in the most unlikely way. Through words and truth, and the courage to step out of the shadows. Sometimes, the greatest love stories are written in secret, one word at a time until the moment comes to speak them aloud. And when that moment arrives, when two hearts that have been connected across distance and anonymity finally meet in the light, it's not an ending, it's a beginning.